Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real, a podcast focused on the fascinating world of near-death experiences, spirit communication, and all things metaphysical and spiritual. The mission of this project is to share messages of hope and inspiration with others, and to spread the word that death is only an illusion. Thank you for being here with an open heart and mind. I wish you peace, light, and love always. All right, so here I am with Robert Petrillo. He is the host of Obsessed with Death, a podcast. And I have him on today because I'm going to have him explain this to you. He has had an obsession with death for a very long time. There's a lot of fear and mystery around death. So, Rob, can you kind of tell us what it was that inspired you to do your podcast, and tell us about the podcast as well?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. There's a few things that go into it. It basically just started off with this just anxiety and fear around death. You know, I could remember exactly where I was the moment I sort of realized that, like, we're all going to die one day, and like that, like, fear sort of just washed over me. And I feel like I've never really been the same since then. And I would want to talk about it all the time. I'd meet new people, or I'd be with friends, and I would just be like, I'm the guy who would just walk up to somebody and be like, what do you think happens when you die? Like, what do you think's going on? And a lot of people don't want to think about that. They don't want to talk about it. It makes them uncomfortable. And it's totally understandable. I get that. And I don't want to make people uncomfortable, but I was just like so desperate to be like, I have to talk about this. And I do therapy, and you do all these things to sort of help and deal with it. And something that we came up with was, well, trying to find an outlet for this anxiety that I have, and a way to sort of embrace it in some sense. And it would be, sometimes just watching documentaries or reading books or whatever it was. But I really felt like I just wanted to talk to people about it. And, I come from a broadcasting background. I loved old talk radio, and I loved podcasts and listened to a ton of them. And there was a few where people would come on and there would be conversations about death. And I always really loved those. And I thought that could probably be like the best outlet for me. Is, I like to talk. I like to talk about this kind of stuff. And I would love to, create something. So it's sort of just, started with, the idea was just to maybe have people on and have these sort of conversations, and see how other people felt about death and what they thought and their experiences and all of that stuff. And it just sort of evolved into this thing where I just wanted to find people who were like also like in this like death world, because I felt like we could just have, I don't want to say better conversations, but we were both just sort of looking for the same things. So we just connected better. So I just started interviewing people that were in the death community, people who worked. It started off with like people in funeral homes, and then, people who had near-death experiences, and people who worked, I spoke to talking to doctors and documentarians and all these different people who like worked in this world. And it just became this crazy thing where I would have these conversations with them, and then like I would just like sometimes I'd have to like get up and like go for a walk afterwards, because I just would like have like this energy from this conversation. Like it would just be too much. So it came from this anxiety. It came from my friends basically being like, I don't want to talk about death anymore. Leave me alone. Like I can't do it. And it's just a mixture of a million different things. But here we are now. I'm continuing to like meet all these incredibly interesting and awesome people. And it's we're about 30 episodes in now, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. Yeah.
And that's why I was so happy to find you, because I'm the same
Yeah.
way. I've never been someone that wants to have the chit chat conversations. I'm going right to death. I want to talk about spirituality. But
Yeah.
I also, my background too is that I don't want to say I was atheist at certain points in my life, the angstier periods. And I don't know that I necessarily dwelled on death, but there was I remember saying, I think in college, you turn to dust and then you die. I mean, you die and then you
Sure.
turn to, sorry, reverse. You die and then you turn to dust.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's it. And so it was very angsty and very nihilistic and just like, well,
Sure.
who cares about anything? Because we're all just going to die in the end. And it is that feeling of like, why do we come into this world if we're just going to die? Like, what's
Yeah.
this? Then why are we even bothering? What's the point? And I think we all have those questions, whether we're spiritual or not, of what happens when we die.
Yeah.
And it took so many years of evolution to get to where I am now, where I'm all in with interviewing near death experiencers and doing mediumship work and realizing that my belief now is totally different, where it's like, oh, wait, this here, this is the dream. That's the reality. And it's really helped me with my anxiety because I have severe anxiety disorder. I don't know if I don't like to call it a disorder. I think it's a protective mechanism for those of us that are intelligent enough to think past
Sure.
what's right in front of us and go, what's
Yeah.
happening here? And I remember turning 21 and 25 and going, oh my God, I'm 25. I might as well be dead. Like it's all over. Like I just like, and
Yeah.
I can't
Just
now
one day closer to death.
one day closer to death. And suddenly I'm like, well, there goes everything. So,
Yeah.
do you have any memories of, other than just being born a highly intelligent person and an insightful feeling person,
Yeah.
of anything that may have happened in your childhood that sort of might have triggered this anxiety, or at least even led up to having more questions about death itself?
Not that I could really think of where it's like, oh, this one thing happened, and because I had you know great grandparents pass away when I was young, and I remember going to the funeral and it being an open casket and it not really affecting me.
Yeah, same.
Um, Partially probably because I was still very young and maybe didn't know exactly what I was even seeing. But even
Hmm.
thinking about it later, it not really. I think I don't. I mentioned before. It's like I remember exactly where I was when I like sort of had that realization, and that's really I guess where it comes from is like literally just sitting alone, just thinking, and then being like, oh man, yeah, it could just be nothingness forever.
Yeah.
And like the darkness is just so it wasn't necessarily like this really spiritual or extreme situation. It was basically just that like light bulb flickered in my brain and was just like, oh yeah, I am gonna, and I was young when this happened, but I was like, oh yeah, I am gonna die one day, and then that's just it, and then
Yeah.
we're done. And I don't know if I necessarily believe that now. I don't know.
That was my next question is,
Okay. Yeah.
having interviewed a lot of the people that you have,
Yeah.
and you've interviewed people who work in the more
Yeah.
tangible aspect of death, like funeral home, people who you've you've interviewed someone that, what do you call it? I almost called it taxidermy. That's not what it, but that
I did
involved.
interview someone who
I
does
know.
taxidermy,
Oh,
but
you
yeah,
did. Okay, that's
I
right.
did.
I'm
Yeah.
not wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not
No.
wrong. I wanted to say the people who I can't think of the word right now, but prepare the bodies post.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. Yeah. Well, I interviewed someone who worked in a funeral home, and she did like the embalming
That's right. Embalming.
I'll yeah, and a few different things in the funeral home. She used to go pick up bodies, all kinds of interesting jobs. she,
Yeah.
yeah, she did. But yeah, so yeah, I've definitely spoken to people who have worked in morgues and who just basically are
Yeah.
around dead bodies all the time. Yeah.
Right. And then I find, and yeah, and then I was listening to your podcast, and I reached out to you because I was like, oh, I actually would love to talk about that. And then
Yeah.
also the spiritual aspect. And where do you stand now? Would you say you're an agnostic? Would you say you believe it when you see it? Are you a skeptic? Where do you fall on the spectrum of spirituality versus atheism?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to put like a label on it because
Yeah.
I think it does sort of change a lot. Um, I think, we talked earlier too, about a year ago. I was with my mother and she was having this like sort of intense surgery where it was like she could die from the surgery. Like this could be the end of it. So my brain goes to, okay, if you're going to die right now, we should have a conversation. And the conversation we should have is, what are you going to do to signal to me that like things are still going on? It's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
we should be telling each other how we feel and spending this quality time. I'm like, no, we need like a code word, or like, can you like make it rain, or like a bird fly into my window? Like you got to do something. So if you, and
Right.
that's literally what we talked about on the way to the hospital. I was just like, we got to come up with a thing. If you die, I need
You need
somebody.
a signal.
You're like, I've never had the opportunity to speak to somebody who could possibly be dead within the next few hours.
I know.
So we got to come up with a plan. So like that's really, I think, a big part of when I try and explain to people like where I am spiritually. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just trying to like
You'd like to believe
cheat.
it.
I'm trying to cheat. Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm getting an opportunity here. Most people, if they're like having a heart attack and they're about to die, you can't shake them and be like, make it rain on Thursday. Like that doesn't, you can't do that. So
Right.
I'm like, if there is something I need proof, what better way to do it than to like ask my mom before a
I
very
know.
major surgery?
I know. It's like, and I'm sure that was very soothing for her as well.
She
I know.
enjoyed it. Yeah, but yeah, she played along. She enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you and I think so much alike, and I love your brain because I have that same thought. One of my best friends just passed away recently, unexpectedly in a freak way, but we talked about death all the time together. He was only 40,
Yeah.
right? So he called me his ghost whisperer friend and told me all these ghost stories from his childhood because he grew up on a cemetery, on a like Civil War
Wow.
cemetery, and
Yeah.
was telling me about how he heard a voice be like, "Hey," in the middle of the night and things. So we talked about death all the time. And he explained that his last name was what they called the guy who would like roll the dead bodies out when they would, his
Oh
last name's
wow.
Carter. And he's like, do you know where that comes from? It comes from the guys who used to push the bodies in the carts and pile them up. So we
Wow.
had these conversations all the time.
Yeah.
And then he's with me right now. I just felt him so strongly. So and then all of a sudden he dies and none of us, it was so
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
thank you. It was so crazy that he moved out here to Virginia where nobody lives. He's my friend from LA. We spent all this time together and suddenly he's gone. And I still talk to him and say, "Oh, wait, like, so you died?" Like I know, like I can't believe you
Yeah.
died. I say
Yeah.
that like to him all the time. I'm like, so are you gonna like tell me what's going on? Like what? I can't believe that we had these conversations and now you're there and I just want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's this fascination. It's most people would not go there in their brains. They'd be like, that's a little morbid and weird. But
Sure.
I automatically am like, someone so close to me knows what it's like to die. I can't stop thinking about that apart from the grief and the others, the
Yeah, there's a lot.
other
I mean,
stuff.
yeah, of course, like if my mom did pass away that day from surgery, I don't know if my first thought would be, well,
I know.
I'm gonna wait for it to rain on Thursday now. Of course, there would be grief and some other things, but I genuinely do feel like once I took my time to grieve, I would be waiting for that rain or that bird to fly into my window, like I'd be waiting for it, because that's like
Yeah.
this part of the whole thing is, it is scary, but you know um you mentioned earlier too where it's just like, oh, we're gonna die one day, like what's the point, who cares? And it's like, that's there, there's obviously different ways of looking at that. That's like motivation too, where it's like, oh well, you could just do whatever you want because you are going to die one day and it doesn't matter. Like there's so much beauty in that too. It's
Yeah.
terrifying, but it's beautiful because you're just like,
Hmm.
yeah, fuck it. Sorry, I don't know if
Right.
I can curse
You
on
can,
here.
you absolutely can.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want. Who gives a shit?
Right.
um So, yeah, it's a whole lot of things. And then my main thing is I'm very much obsessed with reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get enough of it. I read about it constantly. There's
Oh,
some really great documentaries about it. And I don't know if you go on Reddit at all, but there was a Reddit thread that basically accidentally started because somebody posted a story about their kid where they're like, does anybody else's kid say that they used to have another family and they like have incredible details for a 4-year-old, and you're just like kind of terrified of your child now?
yeah.
And then it just rained 15,000 stories, just
Whoa.
15,000 comments, mostly stories of, and it was just so great. It like blew my mind. This is a few years ago, uh, where it was just like I spent hours reading all of these comments and all these people, and all of the stories were so similar, like
Right.
scary similar, and all of the ages were so close. It was always between like 4 and 6, four
Mm-hmm.
and seven, right? Um, and whatever. And it's some people maybe they want to make up a funny story, whatever. There's some of them where you're just like it just blew my mind. Um, and then like I said, there's some I've seen some documentaries where it's really crazy. There's doctors that study reincarnation as a
Yes.
profession, and will really dedicate time to like meeting with these children and doing their research and almost essentially quizzing them on what they're saying, and like doing the research,
And the
and
research.
it's like this proof that they have where it's like, yeah, these kids, there's kids talking about like airplanes from like World War II, and it's like,
Yeah.
you're 6 years old. No one, you don't even know what World War II is. And you're like,
Right.
oh, well, I flew this plane and I crashed here, whatever. It's just so crazy. So I'm like a little obsessed with that. Um, I have a niece who can't speak yet. We're getting there, but as soon as she's old enough, I have so many questions.
Right.
I just
Right.
want to know. I just want to grab her and be like, what do you remember?
I know, and
Your
that's the
first
thing that
time?
so many I've seen that too. And there's also another one you probably have seen on YouTube, and I think it was an episode of Extraordinary People, and it's called The Boy Who Lived Before. And this kid, I believe it was in Scotland, and oh, I just got chills about it. It's because it's one of the best ones where you're like, that kid is not acting. That
Yeah.
kid is sobbing. And they took him to the house where he said he used to live. Like his parents started to put together that he's got this whole story,
Yeah.
and he's only a little kid and he's so earnest about it. And they started to research and they're like, that actually is a place. And they took him there and they filmed it. And the kid was hysterically sobbing. And
Yeah.
he was like, that's my house and that's where my dog was. And they pieced together that these things were true. And he'd
Yeah.
never been there before. And one time I was babysitting for a kid that was like 6 years old. And we went to, he might have been five actually. Young, he was younger than six for sure, maybe 4 or 5. Took him to the park, and he looks so, and he's a Caucasian kid, and he looks over, and there's this, um, like I think they're Mexican. I lived in LA, so it's
Yeah.
there are a lot of Mexican people. And he looks over there, and he's like, my family. He goes, my family, my family. And I'm like, what? And he takes off running. And he's like,
Yeah.
I miss my family. I want to be with my family. And he like runs into their arms. And I was like, I'm sorry. And they were very
Yeah.
sweet. And like, he's a cute
Sure.
little kid. So they're not mad. But finally I was like, okay, we gotta go. We gotta go. And he was like, no, I want to be with he was so earnestly upset about it. And I asked his mom, she's like, he's never said anything like that before. Even to this day, I've been like, did anything else happen? And she's like, no, this kid was hysterical
Yeah.
and was like, that is my family. That's my dad. And I always wondered, is it like maybe he, you know, came from a different culture, or maybe those people, those souls he recognized as being people that were in his family before, and they were maybe crossing paths in a different
Yeah.
incarnation. That stuff is so fascinating
Yeah.
also.
It does seem like children just could see and sense things that like
Yeah.
adults just can't.
Because they
And
haven't been trained out of it yet.
yeah, and a lot of it, a lot of those stories that I was reading, a lot of them were like, oh, I got to choose you, like you're my new family. A lot of it is like, you're my new family. Like
Yes.
they did it once, it didn't work. A lot of it was like, seemed to be like accidents, car accidents, fires, whatever. So it seemed like a lot of them were like, oh yeah, you're my new family, like I got to choose you. A lot
Yes.
of them, a lot of these kids would tell stories about, oh, my imaginary friend, and they described the imaginary friend, and it was like the mom's father who died like 6 years ago. She's like, oh, he's got this like weird accent, and it's like, oh, the father was Irish, and then you're just like, yeah, it's just it's there's just so many stories like these, and it's so hard to argue them, where you're just like, well, there's got to be something to that.
Yes. I think that you nailed it. I think it's great to be skeptical. In fact, that's one thing I really emphasize on this podcast is I don't want it to be so woo-woo that it's not accessible to the average person.
Yeah.
I want it to be a point of conversation where just listen to this story and you draw your own conclusions, and nobody's trying to convert anybody. As I've said, I work as a medium. I have clients, and the stuff that comes through to me, I sit there and go, really? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm shocked when I get it right. Which is,
Yeah.
every reading, there's something really valuable there. And I'm always shocked. I never know that spirit's going to show up every time, and they always do. And I'm always as blown away as my client, if not more, because it's coming from me and I'm shocked. But it is, I also am a skeptic, not because I know this is real.
Yeah.
I know it is, but there are things that I'm not 100% sure about. And so I take them with a grain of salt. So when somebody says, oh, I, you know, was walking down the road and I saw Jesus, I'm like, I think they believe that they saw Jesus, and it's
Yeah.
it could be true. I don't know. It's never happened to me. Or that's stuff where people like a physical mediumship where they sit in the dark and this ectoplasm comes out of their body. I'm always like, really? I don't know about that. And then I have friends that are like, no, it's real. Like, I've sat in on it. I've been there. And I'm like, it seems weird to me, but it doesn't mean it's not real. I just
Yeah.
haven't had the experience before.
Yeah, I think about that a lot when people talk about like near death experiences, where I'm like, okay, I definitely they tell a story and it's this wild story, and you're like, yeah, I mean, I definitely believe that happens to you, but I just don't know to like what extent, in the sense
Right.
of like the brain is so incredibly powerful
Yeah.
that sometimes I go, okay, well, was that like a spiritual, like, did you like legitimately go somewhere, or did like your brain just like create that for you? And both are honestly fine. I'm okay with either.
Right.
Whatever your brain, your brain again is so powerful that it could be just creating the situation to just calm you down and make the situation you're going through a little bit easier, but it could be more than that. And
Right.
it's just so tough. And that's the thing where you're just like, well, you'll never really know for sure until, I guess,
Until you
it
go there.
happens to you. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing, that there are people that say it's all just brain chemicals and trying to calm you down, and
Yeah.
endorphins and
Yeah.
hallucinations. And I think that I can understand, because that's something I would have thought at some point. And
Yeah.
now my view has changed on it now that I've met so many near-death experiencers. And I'm like, if it was a hallucination, why are they all the same thing? Like, why are
Sure.
they all experiencing the same thing, just different details? And but I think it's totally normal to be skeptical of that which is
Yeah.
unseen. And that's something that I really like to, as I said, bring is some uh, groundedness as we have these conversations. And I wanted to
Yeah.
have you on specifically because because we like to talk about death, and I think it's a
Yeah.
really interesting topic, and it's so full of mystery. And also to have you receive a mediumship reading from a medium to see what comes through and what your impressions are.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we're going to cut to the clip of your reading,
Yeah.
and then we will resume again and debrief.
Sounds good.
Hello, Magic is Real family. I'm Shannon Torrance, and I'm here today with an episode that I'm really excited about. Today, I have with me, as you can see, not one guest, but two guests. And this lovely woman here, I can't tell where she'll be when you're watching this. She is Lana Johnson. She is an evidential psychic medium. I'm going to have her explain to you what she does. This other gentleman we have here, this guy is Rob. I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to give any information. But after Lana gives Rob a reading, we'll go into an interview with Rob and we'll explain more about who he is and why he's here. So welcome both of you. And thank you so much for your time, your energy, your love, for showing up. And first, I'd just love to say, Lana, thank you for being here. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of the work that you do and how you got into this work in the first place?
Yes. So I do work as a medium, and I did. It came to me. I mean, I remember as a child seeing spirit, but my mother beat it out of me, and so it came back like in my mid-30s with a vengeance. And so I didn't work professionally at it for a while, but when I married my husband, he made me quit working so I could do it professionally. And
Oh,
so
that's
I
nice.
study in England at the Spiritualist Church, Author Finley, and
Hogwarts.
I still study. We never stop.
Yep.
And so it's just one of those things, you know, you feel things, you hear things, you see things, you know things. And
That's right.
sometimes you can be wrong because you're interpreting. You know, it's not that I'm wrong or I'm right, it's about interpretation, right? And so,
Absolutely.
right, that's really what it's about. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
thank you
so
for that. And I think it's important to say that because, a lot of times I grew up watching these programs like John Edward and the Long Island Medium, and
mhm,
you go, oh my God, they never miss a beat. And they're really, really good. And they're really, really, and Matt Fraser, and they're born this way. And but then, of course, there's editing. And I'll just say that I received a reading from a TV medium who has her own show, love her. And I said to her after she read me, I said, listen, I just want to be, she told me, you're a medium. Do you know that? And I said, yes. And she said, uh, I said, I just want to be as detailed and specific and accurate as you are. She said, you are. And I said, yeah, but there was this episode where, and I said, and you nailed this thing that was so specific. And she said, Shannon, do you think I got right to that? She said, there's editing involved. She's like, it took me a while to get there. She's like, I didn't get it right away. And it did take me a while, but nobody wants to see somebody sitting there stammering and focusing, because that's not interesting. And it also doesn't allow for time. So I think that misconception is that we think that we're right about everything, and we're not. We're human beings. Information is being filtered through our human antenna, which is the radio station we're tuning into, and sometimes it's a little staticky. So we get information. Some spirits communicate more strongly than others, and also sometimes we are simply misinterpreting something. We're misinterpreting it, or the person doesn't recognize it because they're not aware of it yet, which has happened to me in readings. And
many
I found out,
times.
yes, many times I've gotten readings and been like, that didn't make sense. And then I spoke with my mother and she's like, that is spot on. I never told you that. That was a family secret, but now it's out. So with that being said, I thank you for explaining the sort of the process, and just let me know what you need to kind of get settled in, and whenever you're ready.
Well, I'm kind of settled.
Okay, great.
I said I always say a prayer before I
Right.
start.
Yep.
Everyone's different. And I've said my prayer. And as I'm sitting here, but you're on here with me too. So I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's for you, Rob, because I asked for my sitters people. But have you lost a male? I feel a male coming through and it's in lineage for me. So this would be a father or grandfather. That's the way it is in lineage. Have
Uh,
you
yeah, both of my grandparents,
both your grandparents?
they've passed. Yeah,
And
both
as
my
I felt that,
grandfathers have
I
passed away.
also heard the word brother and wrote that down. So I don't know if your brother's passed or theirs, but something about a brother as well. I kind of thought maybe it was yours. Have you lost a brother?
No, I don't have a brother.
You don't have a brother. Okay.
No.
So it's just grandparents.
Yeah.
But as I feel them coming in, I felt like this one I feel is more particular like a father than a grandfather. So you would have been really close to him. Do you understand? Were you closer to one of them?
To either my grandfathers.
Yes. Was there one you were closer to?
Um, I guess you could say, yeah, there was one that I was closer to than the other, but not by much. They both passed away when I was young. So it wasn't really, it was harder to like have an actual real relationship with them.
Okay.
But there was one grandfather that I did spend
More time with.
more time with, especially before he had passed.
And would that have been your your mother's father?
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what he said to me. I am on the mother side. So, and I felt like you got a little bit more time with him, and he felt you might not have felt it as much, but it was important for him, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, are you a musician?
um, I wouldn't say I'm a great musician, but I have played music. I have a lot of friends that are involved. A lot of people in my life are musicians. A lot of close friends are.
Okay. I also feel a woman coming in, but this feels lineage to me again. So, but I feel like a sadness with it. So you would have been closer. So this would be mother or grandmother for lineage with me. And also I feel a deep sadness for this. So you would have had to have been closer if it's a grandmother. So have you lost your mother or grandmother
I have one grandmother that passed away.
that you were very
And
close to?
no, not really. I did live with her for a little while as a small child, but
Okay.
very, very young.
Well, as it comes to me, I would have felt that she would have taken care of you and helped raise you in some way, because it feels more sadness to me about like she would felt closer to you or you felt closer to her. And would this also be your mother's mother?
That passed away.
Uh-huh.
No, my mother's mother is still alive.
This
I
would be your
believe so.
father's. Okay.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
as she comes to me, she's talking to me about your mother. So that's why I felt like it was your mother's mother. And as I feel like this, I feel like she's concerned about your mother. Has your mother had some health issues going on?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
feels to me. And I feel like she really genuinely cared for your mother and still does. And
Yeah.
so she's telling me that and I have to tell you, the way it feels to me, and as she comes into me, we rally around your mother as we are helping her, you know. And I feel like that it's just hard for her to get around for some reason. Would that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Definitely.
feel like she's not well, and they're rallying around her, and they just need you to know. And I feel like there's more than just them. I feel like there's other spirits with her, and I just feel like you need to know it's going to be okay. That like I feel like you worry about it, you don't need to, because they're watching, and it's almost like they're letting you know it's okay. I also feel another female coming in. I don't know how she's related to you the way she comes in, but she feels younger, more like closer to your age. And she's very pretty, very open, very when I say flamboyant, it's like she was friendly. She was friendly with everyone. Have you lost someone like this?
The only person that I could think of that it could possibly be would be my dad's sister. My dad's sister did pass away.
Well, I feel like she didn't meet a stranger. Do you understand? Like she loved everyone and she was friendly and everyone adored her as well.
No, not the only person I could think of would be possibly my dad's sister. I can't really think of anyone else.
Oh, was she like that in personality? Everyone loved her, and she was.
Yeah, from what I could remember, she passed away when I was young as well. Yeah, a lot of that. A lot of yeah. She had died of breast cancer.
Well, I don't know how she died yet, so don't tell me. But I do know that she comes close to me, and I feel like she liked your mom too. Would you understand that? Would they have been friends?
Yeah, I believe that
Right.
they
I
were
mean,
close.
you know, some families they're not so close, but this one feels this is about your mom. I feel like she's coming around and you know, like cheering your mom on, that kind of feel about it. And I feel like also, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but I feel like it's changing in this moment. And I could be wrong, but she makes me feel like there's big changes going on and you're going up. So I don't know if you're going up the ladder at work, or you're starting a business, or something's growing. But that's how it feels to me. There's something about pushing and going up, and I feel like they're helping in that way. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's growing, right? Whatever you're doing, it's growing.
Yeah,
right?
There's been a ton of growth recently.
Yeah. Do you own your own business?
I don't, but I'm in the process of creating something. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just know whatever it is you're doing, it's blooming. It's like they're showing me literally like how a flower opens and the petals open, and that's my symbol that it's growing. I think that they're helping in this situation, and I think it's going to get bigger, to be honest with you. I also feel like, and I'll tell you, the only thing that bothers me is that, and she just showed me this flower, is something about you need to get a little more settled and grounded. Would that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
And knowing what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing, but it's almost like we need to kind of get a little bit more grounded. Well, do you have any questions?
Well, I guess the only thing that I've really been thinking about is how my sister is actually doing. She lost somebody, and she lost somebody very close to her.
It's not a young girl though, right?
It is not. No.
Okay.
No.
Young girl in short shorts.
About 10 months ago or so.
Okay, don't say nothing. Would your sister have lost a husband or boyfriend?
Boyfriend, yeah.
That's what I was just feeling too. And
Right.
I don't, I'm not, and I just wanted to ask real quick, if there's something, I just keep seeing this image, so I just want to spit it out, and not to interrupt you, but just to get it out there. I haven't sunk deeply enough into it, but I keep seeing this image of a tiger, like a wild tiger with stripes, but it feels like the name, the tiger, feels to be associated with somebody's name. It doesn't feel like a literal tiger, but it feels like somebody's name is Tiger, or called somebody Tiger. Does that resonate with you at all, Rob?
No, not that I could think of.
I'm not sure about
the
that.
The minute you said that, I thought tattoo, and I thought, does he have a tattoo of a tiger?
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird.
It's very possible he had a tattoo of a tiger. He was completely covered in tattoos.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That'd be interesting to find out if it has some significance, because I just keep seeing it over and over. But anyway, go ahead.
And what's so weird to me as I'm asking him to come close, because I saw him when I got on here with you, but I knew it wasn't related to you per se, right? And so I always try to do family, but I'm asking him to try to come closer to me, right? And as he does, he lowers his head for me. So that means two things. It means that they take responsibility in their passing in some way. Would you understand that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Or it means that they're apologizing. I feel both, to be honest.
Yeah, probably both.
I felt both. And I'm also giving the symbol of addiction. Would you also understand that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now that he's actually coming close to me, my chest, I can't breathe. My chest is tight. There's something about this in his passing as well. Would you understand that?
Yeah.
Or would you know? Huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it almost sometimes reminds me, and I don't know if this is part of it, but it kind of reminds me of fentanyl, because I can't breathe. But my chest is tight. But he hasn't said that to me yet, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But and I'm telling you that, no, we got to talk about this. Hold on. I still see this girl here. Somehow,
yeah, I'm very curious about this girl.
Somehow, I'm telling you, she's not leaving me. So she's just standing there. But anyway, but I have to tell you that as he comes close to me, I do feel like he owes apologies, deep apologies. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
And so I feel like he owes not just your sister, but your family one, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. I could see that.
I mean, you're saying, yeah, but I feel it so deeply in my soul. And I don't feel like that. I feel like that this was somehow an accident of some sort, but some people may say it wasn't. Do you understand that?
Yes, absolutely.
Was this
Yeah.
an overdose?
So there was an overdose,
Okay.
where he basically was dead, but then was brought back.
Was brought back.
My sister will literally, who's a nurse, was able to give him CPR for like 30 minutes, and it was this whole thing, and it was a drug overdose. And then he ended up passing away a week later
From something else.
From something else.
Okay. Because so that's where the apology lies in this overdose.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm asking him, why should you be so sorry? Right. And was that fentanyl?
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure what had happened was there was a drug purchased that he thought was one thing and then ended up being another. I don't know. I would assume it probably was fentanyl.
The reason I'm only asking is my chest has gotten so tight and I can't breathe very well. And that's often a sign of fentanyl for me, but it could have just been his reaction to it too. But
yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact details of what it was.
Yeah. And so that's why, okay, so now things kind of make sense because I did feel like I'm there and I'm gone. It was a quick passing, correct?
Yeah.
Right. And I feel, but he's taking responsibility. So there was a lot leading up to it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I really feel like, has she seen a medium? I feel like he needs to kind of, things went unsaid. Does that make sense?
She's gone to mediums to try and figure some stuff out on her own.
Okay.
She told me a little bit about it, but she kept a lot of it to herself.
Okay. And I just feel like that he really needs to apologize to you. And it's more, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I'm like, well, he said you talk to mediums, but it's more like he needs to apologize to the family. And I said it that way earlier because she has kind of lost herself through it all, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense.
And so I do feel like something's went through me. So would you understand that I feel like something just plowed through me? I don't know what that means, but that's how I'm feeling. Would that make sense toward his actual passing?
Yeah.
Okay. Because and I feel my chest area again. But I also feel like I kind of almost feel like I was kind of thrown, if that makes sense too. So would you understand that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Was this an accident, like a car accident or something where he had been thrown?
Yeah, he went through the windshield.
Okay. That's because I keep feeling like something hit me here and I was propelled, if that makes sense.
Yep. That's what happened.
Something hit my chest area and then I was propelled. But when I'm asking him, he's very ashamed of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so he is taking responsibility for everything, but it all kind of adds up to one mess, if you understand that.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the way he kind of said it.
There was a lot of chaos for sure leading up to it.
A lot of chaos, yeah. But had he gotten a tattoo for your sister before he passed?
Yeah. He got her name tattooed on the side of his face.
But she never got one of him, correct?
Not until after.
After. Yeah. Because he's like, I got it first. And I'm like, oh.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, how did that happen if you passed?
Yeah, it was still fresh. I mean, I don't think he had it for a few days, I think.
Yeah. You know, And I have to tell you, this man, you know, when I said brother, and I wrote it down before we even got on here. When I first got on here with y'all, I wrote the name brother right here.
Yeah.
And he's still saying it to me. So I don't know if you felt that close to him, but he kind of felt that close to you. Do you understand that?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we weren't. I wouldn't consider us close. No.
Okay. Well, I wrote it down, and you kept saying you didn't have a brother, but he just said to me, you wrote it down. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but you're really not his brother. But there's something about that. So I feel like he wanted that closeness, and I felt like he felt closer to you than you felt to him, but he wanted that closeness, and he needed, like, I think that's why he liked y'all's family. He felt like he was closer to y'all than he had been to his own or to other people. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
And I also feel like he was looking for something, love. And he just said, love, ma'am, love. He said it to me twice. I'm like, okay, I get it. But I feel like he was looking for love so deeply, and he found that with your sister. He just could not get past his own demons, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But if there's anything I want to say, and you said, I'm just looking to see how my sister will be, I do need you to know and let her know, and I'm sure they've already told her, that he loved her more than anything. And that's,
Yeah.
it's a deep love. And I felt this deep sadness on here, and I thought it was your grandmother, but I really feel like I'm getting that feeling from him, you know,
Yeah.
because he was really a good guy. It's almost like, what was that guy that was so smart that he was, you know, he just I can't think of the movie now, but he was so smart. And that's how I feel about this young man. I say young man because he's younger than me, but I felt he was really smart. He was brilliant. He just couldn't figure out how to put it all together. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But would you know that to be true?
Not to the extent of his intelligence. I don't know if I could speak to that.
I just feel like he was highly intelligent.
Yeah, the personality, I think, big personality, you know, was really great with people, I think, and like building relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah, but he just didn't know how to bring the two worlds together.
I think that was, yeah, I think that was a struggle. Yeah.
Right. Because he had his own chaos in his mind. But I feel like if he could bring, like, he understood things better than he could express them, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, if he could bring his intelligence with, like you said, his big personality, and he could just focus on those without the chaos, he would have been beyond. He would have been great. So anyway, did he also play an instrument, or was a musician?
I don't know.
It's just you. Okay.
I know there was music was a big part of his life. I can't remember offhand if he actually played music or was just like it was just a big part of. He was a big fan, you know.
I started hearing music again, and I'm hearing those drums, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I'll have to ask my sister.
Yeah. Anyway, I just feel like I feel like he came through because I prayed so hard, and he knew you'd be here, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I literally felt him, and I kept thinking, and you said no to the brother, and I was like, oh God, are you sure? You know,
I didn't want to say anything, but I was like, if there's definitely a male around, I would assume it's got to be him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do feel like he comes close to y'all, even though he's passed on.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, and I'll have to tell you, I do feel like that, he tells me he takes responsibility. So was the accident his fault too?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he just said, I take responsibility. And he said that to me. But I also am aware that someone else got a tattoo in honor of him besides your sister. Do you know that to be true too?
Oh, yeah, maybe his brother did.
I just feel like other people did. So I'm going to say
there's definitely, yeah, I'm sure some of his other family probably did.
And I feel like that when he passed, it's almost like I feel like there was a service of some sort, and he's like, they talk shit about me, ma'am.
Oh
And he's
gosh.
laughing. So I feel like he really enjoyed his service, but he is very aware that people told stories about him and talked shit about him.
Yeah,
And,
there's a lot, there's mixed emotions for sure.
so I'm like, well, okay, I will say
Yeah.
it that way. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
but he's very
definitely. Yeah,
much, but I'm telling you, I still see a young woman. So just know I said it.
yeah,
And
I'm so curious about that.
well, I feel her over here. I mean, she's like, I could describe her to a T where I can feel his energy. Does that make sense? And that's the way mediumship works. Sometimes you can see them so clearly, and sometimes you can just feel them more clearly,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, sure.
And but do you have any questions you want to ask him?
No, I feel like I kind of want to leave that to my sister, and to let her kind of deal with that. You know, I was more curious that if he would be a part of this at all, just in general. I think kind of what you've shared is probably more than enough that I needed to get from him. But I'll kind of leave the conversations between
And
the
I'm
two of them.
telling you, I'm telling you, I feel so much energy in my room at this moment. And I feel like it's your family. And I know you've had friends you've lost, even though you may not recognize them, because I feel like there's others. And I feel like they're all supporting you in your new adventure. I don't know what that adventure is, but I do know that it's almost like I see a little gambling machine, and I see, it going off, when they make all that noise,
I like this. I
you
like
hit
the
it
sound of
big
that.
and it's all beeping.
Yeah.
It's that kind of feel I see. So whatever adventure you're in, I think that it's going to go off for you. Like, it's going to be good for you. So
That's
if
exciting
I'm
to
right,
hear.
I should get 10% of that.
I'll make sure you get a check. You got it.
Thank you. I
But
actually have a question. Oh, I have a question for Rob, because I kept having this feeling of this younger male, like younger boy. I don't think in spirit, but connected to this guy. Would there have been a younger boy? I don't, it feels like a son. I don't know if it's his son, and it may be from a different relationship, but it felt like there was a younger boy that kind of looked up to him as a father, or like a little brother or something, that but it just felt like a younger boy, like 7. Do you know anything about that?
Well, from a previous relationship, he had a younger daughter.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, then I maybe just be wrong, but I had this feeling of this child that was important. Like, I just had this feeling of there was this child that like looked to him like a father, whether it was like his biological child or not. It just felt like there was this something about that child felt very important. But the kid felt like around 7 or something like that. So I don't even know if that's close to what this girl.
I don't know her. I don't know her exact age, but it's around there. Yeah.
Okay. And I could just be wrong about the gender, but it definitely felt like he left a child behind, whether it's his own biological child or not. And he wanted to acknowledge that child, and because it felt like a very close relationship that he has with this kid, and feels really had a lot of remorse about not being there for her, or having to leave her, and really kind of, because the thing is with this child and the relationship that he had with her, like she looked up to him and thought he was walked on water. So it doesn't feel like there was any knowledge, like she didn't have any knowledge of his dysfunctional behavior or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it really felt like she trusted him, looked up to him, just worshipped him, like thought he was the coolest, and that he was very loving towards her. It wasn't his demons were hidden from her. And so, okay, I just got to, okay, now I'm starting to feel more energy, because he's saying, yeah, like he wants to talk about her and obviously send love, but that's so, I know that's not very specific. So I'm just getting this feeling of immense love for her and wanting to protect her, and knowing that he is still involved in her life very closely. And not having had a chance to say goodbye, which would be obvious because it was an unexpected passing. But he just showed me my symbol for there wasn't enough time, which is like, I'll see a clock, where it was like there wasn't enough time. Like he would have liked to have said something to her before he left, but he didn't have a chance to do that. Do you know anything about that?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, so my sister was, she traveled for work and he traveled with her. So he
Okay.
was gone for over a year, where I don't think that they were able to see each other. So there
Yeah.
was like this large chunk of time where he wasn't able to see her. And then they were getting to the point where they were slowly working their way back towards being all in the same town together. And he basically passed away like right before everybody
That
was going to be back in town.
that
Yeah.
feels so right. That feels so right because it felt
Yeah.
like as much as he loves your sister, there's really obviously this big responsibility towards this child and feeling
Yeah.
like I didn't want to leave her. Like I really didn't want to leave her. And there was something unsaid. Again, I know that's, what Lana had said, but I did feel this feeling of um really wishing he could have said more to her, like because he loved her so much and wanted her to be safe in the
He,
world.
yeah. And he also, I mean, it was very close to Christmas too. So I think that
Right. Okay.
there was there was plans to do things and see each other. And I'm sure he had things that he wanted to do and say and all of that.
And
And
make
yeah.
up. I felt like it was a
Yeah.
making up of something when he said there wasn't
Sure.
enough time. And okay, I just got a chill from him too. And I know he just, I mean, I don't know if you'll even, them well enough to even send that to them. I would kind of want more specifics just for them. But
Yeah.
again, I'm gonna see if I can do a reading for you after the like on our own time too and see if anything
Sure.
else comes through. But I definitely just felt like that's so important to him. That father role really meant a lot to him because it gave him something to feel proud about. He didn't feel very proud. He felt a lot of shame about having gone down the road of addiction and he had a lot of trauma. I think the main thing he just wanted to kind of push through is yes to everything Lana said, but also I've got to give love to this child that I really wish I could have done more for and been there more for, and really wanted to be able to really be instrumental in her growing up. So I think that's the main thing.
Ask something right quick.
Yeah.
Would the ocean, or would you know if the ocean would have been important to him and your sister?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
And would she have a picture of them on the beach that she
yeah,
looks at often?
yeah, definitely. They had dogs they would take to the beach a lot.
Yeah.
They left Arizona basically to be by the water. Yeah.
Because he literally, while you were talking, he says to me, I love the beach, and that's where we were good. That's where we were good.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, and then he showed me a snapshot, a little picture
Yeah.
snapshot. And I felt like your sister had one of them on the beach that she kind of looked at often. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, just please let her know. I feel so much love as he comes close for your sister and for your family. I mean, you don't understand it, but I do feel that for the whole family. So, Shannon, have you lost a young girl?
No, I'll claim it if I have. If anything resonates
I
with
keep
me,
saying
I'll
this young girl about a young adult. Maybe I shouldn't say girl. The young adult. She would have been in her 20s, something. And I see her in short shorts, and I see her so plain, so clear standing here. So, but y'all, neither one. Okay.
I'll think about it.
I see her. I feel like she has dirty blonde hair, or not, not brassy blonde, natural blonde, right?
Yeah.
With a
Yeah.
little brown. I
Yeah.
see her. She was built really good, and she has short shorts on for me. And I
Yeah.
feel like she would have been sassy, prissy, had that attitude, she
Yeah.
was all that.
Yes. So someone that you're sort of describing is a friend of mine who is currently battling cancer. So I'm just like, I don't know, are you seeing like something that's like going to happen? Because
Oh, interesting.
she's doing okay, but it's been a struggle. It's the cancer's really bad. And I mean, you basically just described her. So I don't know
Okay.
if that's a thing, but
Well,
she's struggling right now.
I mean, I don't know how to answer that because, to be honest, we're all going to go sometime, right?
Oh,
But
sure. That's true. Yeah.
but I will tell you this: if she's in the Dallas area, I do trance, and I'll do trance for free.
And can you tell Rob what trance is?
Trance is where I go, you come, you lay down. It's an energetic healing. It really has nothing to do with me. I go and say a long prayer. I call in all the natives, I call in all the saints, all your family, my family, I call in anybody. And then I call in the doctors, the ones that's lived, the oncologists, the ones that's lived on the planet, the ones that's done the work. And I feel them come in, and then I'm kind of out of it. And then I have no clue what happens. Very seldom will they speak to me in spirit. They usually come in, and when I come back in, it's not that I leave my body, but when I just become more aware, it's over and done. And I've seen huge miracles with it. And then I've seen when nothing's happened, right?
Yeah.
So I make no promises. I just call it in. But if I see doctors come in, 90% of the time, the doctor will tell me their name. And if they tell me their name, I will Google it, and I will find that they were, an oncologist. Like one of my clients I saw, she had thyroid cancer.
Yeah.
And when I went to trance, a doctor came and he said, "My name is Dr. James Shaw." And I said to him, "Good, cut her throat. I don't care, fix it." And then I was kind of not out of my body, just kind of not aware. And when I was more aware, he was gone. And so when she opened her eyes, she was kind of like, water's pouring, not tears. It was pouring water. And she says, "I don't know what happened, but I feel like my neck was cut. It is so sore, I can't touch it." And I said, "Well, I don't know. We got to go find out who James Shaw is." And so I went and Googled, and James Shaw was the leading authority on thyroid cancer in the world. And he lived in Auckland, New Zealand. And he had passed, and we Googled and got the information. When she went to have her surgery, the doctors cut her open and sewed her up. And they're like, "We don't know, but this test shows cancer. We know, we can tell you this says cancer." But they found nothing. So was that me? No, it was not. It was not in any shape, size, or form, but I don't always guarantee that, because I haven't always had the experience that everyone gets healed, but I have had many miracles, and I make no promises. So if she would like to come and try it, I will do it for free.
I was going to say,
prayer's prayer. It don't
That's
matter.
what I always feel like. I'm a Reiki healer, and I, even as a medium, am a skeptic about, and I don't mean that's, I know that you're not, but I'm always like, and I'm like, I don't exactly know that I'm healing or that I'm facilitating healing, other than the fact that I believe in the power of intention and prayer. And I do believe that when you put it out to the universe, so I don't know if it's the symbols I'm writing in the air.
That could be very well why I'm seeing her, so that we could have this conversation.
It's drawing attention to somebody that has a need. And I always feel like, hey, if nothing else, it's showing love to somebody. It's showing intention and prayer, whether you're, and I'm not religious, and I'm spiritual. And it's not about like praying to the right gods. It's just sort of saying to the universe, like, I intend, and I intend for this healing, loving energy to surround this person. We're all made of the same energy. So I figure it can't hurt if nothing else. And the first time I practiced Reiki on one of my friends, she had been through so much loss. She had so much back pain, and she was just having a really hard time. And I did it for her. I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen. And she sobbed afterwards and said that felt so healing. And I was like, I think if nothing else, it's the act of giving love to somebody that I told her, you just do nothing. You just lay here and let me take care of you. It's the intention of care that I think is in the healing, when you feel loved and supported, and you're able to just sort of say, I'm taking this burden off of myself and letting somebody else care for me. I think that in itself is so healing. So I think it can't hurt. I have neighbors that are really, that are immigrants from Ethiopia, and they're very religious, and they're very Christian. And I really didn't tell them a lot about what I do, but they were like, "Oh, do you do new age stuff?" And I was like, "I guess that's what you'd call it." And they were like, "Can we pray for you to find Jesus?" And I was like, "You know what? Sure." Like, they prayed over me, and they did, and I was like, I do not shun any kind of love coming my way. I'm not taking it personally. I think as a when I was younger, I would have taken that as they're forcing their religion on me. I don't like this. I'm not going to do it. But I
Yeah.
kind of was like, what's the harm? You're sending me love and well wishes. And, if I'm more than open-minded about all of it. So I think that it can be really helpful just feeling supported
I
in that
mean, you're
way.
welcome to have my information, and I would be happy to
I'll
help
send
them.
that over to
Yeah, that
to
would be
her,
great.
Rob. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I'd be happy to do Reiki for her too on Zoom. So, well, Lana, thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot that you took the time and energy to show up. Thank you so much, Lana. I will talk to you shortly. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, Robert. So you had a reading with Lana.
Yes.
And let's talk about how it went for you.
Sure. That's the first time I've ever done anything like that, by the way.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
I've never done it before. I mentioned I have, family that have done it before that are very much into it and get a lot out of it. And I've always found it very interesting, and it was something that I wanted to do. So I was very happy that, we found each other and that we were going to do something like this. But it also just like makes me nervous because I'm like, and you were so great to sort of, explain in the beginning that it's like, yeah, it's not going to be like perfect because you think about it in your head. You're like, oh, well, they're going to tell me all these. And I felt like there was some of that where I was like, I was shocked in the accuracy and what we were talking about. But it still always makes me nervous because like, I don't want to be like, I feel bad being like, nope. No,
I know.
no,
I feel the same way when I get readings.
I just
I'm like,
feel bad.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's something when I give my speech before, I always tell people, listen, don't be afraid to say no. I could be wrong. Like I may just be wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people have come back and said, actually, like the next day, I remembered what that was. It makes sense. And sometimes they don't, because as mediums, we're filtering information and winnowing grain from chaff. And the reason that we study, and why I spent the last 2 years studying, like Lana mentioned, the Arthur Finley School, which is what we call Hogwarts, where you go to this place where all of these like UK mediums started, and you stay in these dorms and you get together in groups and you work with like the greats of the world and learn how to do it. And the reason, and what it is it's learning to decipher, wait, is this my energy? Is this my thought? Or is it spirit?
Sure. Yeah.
And
yeah, that's interesting.
It's funny because usually when I do my prayer beforehand, I start to feel spirit right away. And then I'm like, okay, I have a strong sense of who's here. I know it. And then today I didn't do that and was like, oh, I should have done that because it sort of set, like we talked about, intention. And I always tell people, listen, I'm not going to be right about everything. The best mediums are 75% accurate. And I find now that I would do the work and I watch other mediums work, I get nervous for them because I'm like, I know what's happening here. I get what's happening. But I also have learned that I have paid big money to get readings from like some of the best mediums in the world, like the ones, the TV show people.
Yeah.
They've not resonated with me.
Really?
And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I understand how it works, but I realized sometimes I'm like, I actually think that my reading was better than that, but not like more accurate than that person who has their own TV show. And I started to realize that everyone has off days. We're only human. We're not always right. When you're on fire, and but the ultimate thing is to make the person feel like their loved ones are in the room with them. So if I say, like I asked you, Conrad, you're like, that doesn't mean anything. I'm like, it could have just popped into my brain. Like it may not be anything. But if I bring through like, okay, I'm getting a strong feeling of like a father and he passed this way. And usually I can tell people how they passed. I can ask the spirit, I can start feeling it in my body. But sometimes I forget where I was going with that. However, I think that I too have been like, wow, this really is, I'm disappointed sometimes that it's not a perfect science.
Sure. And of course it's not going to be like anything else in this world. Like nothing's going to be 100%. And, I definitely, I wasn't expecting, this magical experience or whatever you want to, call it. But yeah, I've just, it's just something I've always been curious with. And I think a big part of maybe why I didn't necessarily do it either is because I've been lucky in the sense that like I haven't lost a lot of people in my life,
Yep. And that's the thing. I just
Yeah.
had, I don't want to interrupt you because you're on the mic, but this is something that I talked about in a recent episode, that something I'm learning. When I have a spirit that is ready to talk and there's a big message and it was a tragic passing, oh,
Yeah.
I feel it. I know. And I'm shocked with what they'll tell me. And I've been able to tell people, oh my gosh, somebody took this person's life. Oh my God, this is how it happened. And they're like, yes, yes, yes. But if I look at someone and I'm not really kind of feeling a lot,
Yeah.
I've learned that doesn't mean that I'm not connecting. It means they just don't have a lot of people on the other side,
Yeah.
or their loved ones are kind of quiet. And I've had a
Sure.
couple of readings like that where people just came to me out of curiosity. And I just was like, I feel like I have this boring grandma and this boring grandpa, and that's kind of all there is. It's like they were Depression era. They worked really hard. They took care of their kids. I don't have much in the way of personality. And sometimes I even get disappointed. And then I go, wait a minute, this lack of information is information. Because when I tried to tap into you too, I'm like, I'm just not getting a whole lot. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like you don't have like this massive grief in your life directly. You've
Yeah.
been affected by grief, but I kind of was like, I'm not feeling a lot of powerful energy around, not
Yeah.
around you, but from spirit. And that in
Sure.
itself gives me some information, which is really interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting. And it makes me feel better about it just because, again, like it's the whole thing where it's like, oh, I just don't want to be like to sit here the whole time and just be like, nope,
I know.
no. But I'm so curious, and it's so interesting to me that it's like I want this, but obviously, um, for this to really, I guess, have like a big impact, there's somebody that you really need to be looking to speak to,
Yeah. There has to be a
or
need, a really
yeah,
strong need. And I
yeah,
think that in your case, there was a need on behalf of your sister, because
yeah,
that was a tragic, very close person.
yeah,
And that's when you started to ask about your sister. I immediately was like, her partner passed, and I could just feel that. But other than that, I was like, I feel like you're fortunate in that you still have a lot of your loved ones close to you, and that I was even kind of going, does he even have like a friend? Like a lot of us have lost peers, but I was like, it's so interesting. I think we all know someone who's passed,
yeah,
but it wasn't until now in my 40s that I lost my first person who was so close to me that it actually impacted my life. I made it like, 4 decades
yeah.
without losing anybody
E-
close to
ex-
me.
yeah, and it's like, of course, there, growing up in high school and stuff, there were people I knew that had passed away, but it's like very much more acquaintances or
Yeah.
friends of friends, not somebody who's gonna like, I would assume would pop up, during something like that,
Yeah.
just because we weren't necessarily that close. And even with my grandparents, I mean, I wasn't that. They did die when I was relatively young. I think like, between like 12 and 13 years old is right around the age where I lost both my grandmother and both my grandparents, or my grandfathers. And there wasn't like even a big connection with them. Like we didn't live close to each other, we didn't speak a ton. They were doing kind of just doing their own
Yeah.
thing. So there wasn't really a closeness there. And I did speak to my sister about it because I was curious if like, and she did mention how they sort of showed up for her, but more in like a sense of just like, oh yeah, they're here,
They're here to
and they were
guiding
just,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they were described, in detail to her, and it sort of made sense. But it's like, my both my grandparents, or my they just, they're not a ton of personality
That's what
that
I
I
felt.
that I would expect, yeah, for them
And
to
that's
like
so interesting
pop
that you
up.
said
Yeah,
that, because I literally was trying to tune into you, and I'm like, I'm getting like nothing, not nothing, but just I'm getting more of like grandparent vibes of people who don't have big personalities. I find that when a young person comes in, that's when I get like flooded with energy.
sure,
It's,
yeah,
oh, I don't, like, it's a young person who passed in their prime, like or at 21. Those are the ones that I have the best contact with. And or somebody that was so incredibly close. Like my strongest reading, or one of my strongest readings, I remember before I got on the call, I was like, oh my God, I feel overwhelmed. like so much feeling, so
Yeah.
many feelings. And I just was like, did your like partner pass away? And this woman said, yeah. And he was flooding me in a way that I've never felt. It was like this electricity. And I'm like, he's really wants to talk. He's like, I'm really, really, really sorry. He wants to acknowledge this. He came in so fast and left so fast.
Hmm.
And I think, I can't remember, she might have not even been a paid, she might have been a practice reading, fortunately, because I'm like literally 20 minutes in and out. And I said, he doesn't want to talk about his feelings. He never did. He wants to apologize for that. I was like, but he wants you to know that he totally gets the error of his ways and he won't tell me what it is. And she's like, I know exactly what it is. Don't even worry. She said, I've been praying for him to apologize to me. That's all I needed. Cause I was like, tell me more. What is it? What are you upset
Yeah.
about? She said, I know what it is because I've been feeling it. And then I just got one thing of information where I'm like, why is he showing me a chandelier? And she's like, because at Thanksgiving, the chandelier started flickering. And we said, I know that's you. And I even said to her his name. I was like, who is, I'll say, you know, for anonymity, I won't say it. I'll say John. I go, who's John? She's like, that's his name. And I was like, well, that guy came in with, he needed to talk to her because he died suddenly of a heart attack and it in his like next to her in bed. And it was like, he just wanted to come in and be like, look, I know I was kind of an asshole. I'm so sorry. I get it now. He said, I should have gone to therapy when you said, and she's like, yep. And then he just, all of a sudden, all the feelings just left. And I was like, he said, that's it. I'm done. And she goes, that's his personality. I said, he just told me I'm done. She's like, that's how he communicated. So I think as mediums, sometimes that's why we get nervous because we don't know if it's going to be like that huge validation where I'm getting his name, I'm seeing the chandelier, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on fire. Well, they're on fire. And then you get those ones where you're like,
yeah,
you got like a quiet grandpa there. You're just kind of like sitting in the corner, just
I
saying,
mean,
hey.
literally while one of my grandpas was alive, he literally just never talked. Like he, you know, he was old and you know, he was just like, he just wanted to just sit in peace. You know, you're a kid and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna go outside and I don't know, maybe we'll talk in 10 years or something.
I know.
and then that's so that's definitely something I thought about, and it's so interesting that sort of resonates with you too, because it's something that
because I'm like, why am I not getting anything? And I sometimes have trouble reading when another medium is reading because I'm trying to like not listen to them and
get
just
your wires crossed.
I'm just not experienced enough to be able to do that very well. I really need a one-on-one. I go deep with my readings. I really sit with my clients for sometimes over an hour just because I like to deep dive in a way that, you know, my mentor is like, you got to shorten your readings. Like you can't go for that long. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I really just want to get in there. And then when I don't get a lot, I get frustrated and and I'm like, okay, that's not enough. So I think it is really interesting for you to be able to see the process, but I love too that you're so open-minded about it and you want to
I will look, I
believe in it.
it's like my childhood all over again. My grandparents have nothing to say to me, so you know, it's just like it's what I expected. And you know, I'm just like, I want to experience all these things. It's interesting you mentioned too, like the chandelier, like the flickering. I've never really like experienced that, like, you know, you see it in movies and TV shows and people talk about like, oh, like the lights flickered. But what's interesting is, so when my sister's boyfriend did pass away, he passed away, like I said, it was like about a week before Christmas or so. So all this family, we already made plans. Like we were all going to meet together. We had family flying in from the other side of the world. Like we were doing this big thing. So there was so many of us together, and we had this, you know, obviously we had this hotel room for family that was in town, and we were all just sort of spending time together, kind of rotating through this hotel room. And there was a point in the night, you know, where he had only it had only been like maybe a week or so, if anything, a week. It could have been less, could have been 5 days, that there was a point where we were all sitting in the hotel room, and you know, this was like a nice hotel. It wasn't like they were having a power outage or anything, but there was a point where there was a few of us, we're all sitting around and we're talking about just, you know, how unfortunate things were. And I literally said his name, and the light flickered at the moment I said his name. And it was just like,
that was him.
It was just like,
my sister had mentioned
similar things happening to her days before in the hotel. Like it was just like, oh, okay, so I guess he's just in the hotel with us right now. But it was just so surreal because it's like, again, like you see these things in TV and movies and people talk about it and you're like, okay, well, I don't know if that like actually really happens to
Right.
people. And then when it's like literally the lights flick, when I said the guy's name and the lights flicked, I'm just like, this is too much.
I know.
It's wild. It's
You don't
really,
expect it to be so predictable and easy. In fact,
yeah,
when my aunt passed away, I had the same thing happen. And I'm a medium, so I'm not surprised. But this was the most
yeah,
shocking thing, is that she passed away. And that night I said, my grandmother made this joke. She's like, when I pass away, I'm going to flicker the lights. And she goes, look out for that. It's going to be me.
yeah,
And she was also kind of an atheist. She was like basically very agnostic. And that night I said to Aunt June, I go, Aunt June, listen, ask my grandma. They were friends on opposite sides of the family. I said, ask Carmen to show you how to flicker the lights and flicker the lights. So I know you got to the other side all right, even though I know everybody does. And
yeah,
I shit you not, I'm sitting there on the couch. 5 minutes later, my eyes drawn to the kitchen. All of the lights are flashing. Like
yeah,
flashing, like there's a little bit of a like electricity thing in that kitchen. Like there were occasional little blips. It was a light show. It was
yeah,
going crazy. And I was alone in the house. My partner at the time was out and he wasn't there to witness this. And I was like, wait, no. I was like, that can't, that isn't,
yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah,
Like that's crazy. But that was the only time it's been on command,
yeah,
except for when I was driving to Nashville a few weeks ago. And I said to my friend in spirit, I said, can you just show me a sign, please? And I looked up and the truck in front of me said Carter on it. And that was his last name. So
wow,
there are those little things. But when it happens, you're like, maybe
yeah.
it's just a coincidence, but it's
I
really cool to think about.
yeah, the only the thing that comes to mind is I have a friend who his aunt had passed away and they essentially like found her. She told them, she's like, I'm living in my house, I'm living on my own until the day I die. You're gonna find me on the floor. Sorry, just like you got to deal with it. So like type A that like she paid for her funeral before she had like the outfit she wanted up in her closet. Like she was totally ready.
Ready.
And she was like, spiritual and just told them, she's like, this is what's going to happen. And she like kind of called the whole thing. And there was an issue with her doorbell, right? So like it would never work. So people would knock. She's old. She couldn't hear the knocking. They would come inside and they would always sort of like scare her a little bit. And that was like the thing. They're like, I'm going to scare you. You're going to have a heart attack. I can't handle it. Like, let me fix this doorbell, please. And she would just tell them, nah, forget it. Leave the doorbell alone. I don't care. They end up coming one day, finding her on the floor, just like she said. They have a funeral. They come back to her house to sort of come back and clean. And as they're all like sort of sitting around going through her stuff, the doorbell just starts going off. Like it just won't stop ringing. And they just all sat there and just kind of looked at each other and just like started laughing. And they're just like, this is, of course, like it's just,
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. That
it's
was
just,
her message.
it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's those, when you hear
Crazy.
stuff like that, you're just like, that just, yeah, I don't know. It just,
I know. I,
it
I
like
love,
it helps my anxiety, and then it also
yeah,
just like kind of creates like a whole nother world where I'm just like, okay, well that's comforting, or is it just coincidence, and you're just like, I don't know.
I know. I wonder it all the time. I mean, I believe in it 110% now, but at the same time,
Yeah,
I do have those moments where I'm like, what if it's not real?
I gotta
What if,
get there.
yeah,
Yeah, I gotta
yeah,
get to that 110%. I don't know how I'm
yeah.
gonna do it, but I
And maybe
gotta I
that's
gotta
not your
get there.
path. Maybe,
Yeah,
I've, I have more years on you too, where I finally was like, okay, this is all coming together. Now doing this podcast, I'm like, I am so convinced because the people I have on are so grounded and normal and regular people, and they have all this wisdom and their stories line up
yeah,
and the things that they say really all just keep on validating what I'm starting to see.
yeah,
You start to put it all together and I'm like, now I have a bigger picture and it's all being validated. And now I think I know what's going on. There's still so much we don't know. And
yeah,
so I thank you for coming on and sharing your fears, your anxieties, your thoughts about death,
Sure.
and for being so open-minded at the same time. And I'm really, I want to recommend your podcast. I've listened to it. It's great.
Thank you.
Obsessed with Death. Where can we find you? I will put links below, but where can we
Yeah,
find
yeah.
your podcast?
Just search Obsessed with Death podcast. You know, we're on all the things, the
Yeah.
Spotify's and the
That's
Apple
how I found
podcasting
you.
and all
I
that
found
stuff.
you on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah.
Just, I think
Yeah,
we just found each other.
Obsessed with Death Pod on Instagram.
That's what I thought
But
it
yeah,
was.
you know, yeah, but we're all I'm on the things. You just give it a Google and you'll find it. And yeah, that's
I can
I
recommend.
I really appreciate you having me on. This was
Such a
very,
pleasure.
very
So fun.
fun. Yeah, and you're gonna come on my podcast too, and we're gonna have
Yes.
another
I
conversation.
can't wait.
I've got plenty of questions for you.
Oh, fantastic.
And we're gonna have a lot of fun. Yeah.
We are. Thank you so much, Rob. Talk to you
Of
soon.
course.